Hello?
Hi, Magali.
Ah, great, you can hear me. I don't succeed in sharing my screen.
Just wait, I think that they're working on it. Hello.
Thank you. Hi,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too. I'm happy to be here. Salut, Junior.
Magali, you're going to have 25 minutes for your presentations,
Yes.
and we're going to have 5 minutes for questions and answers.
Okay. Yes,
I'm going to
great.
tell you that you have 5 minutes left when you do.
Okay, perfect.
Magali, can you share your screen?
So I will retry. For the moment, I couldn't. Écran couplé. I cannot. I think I'm not a presenter or something like this.
Should have. She's got permission.
Hi, Magali. Apologies
Hi.
for that. Could you?
Yeah,
It's
no,
Margot.
it's
Could you
yeah.
try sharing your screen again, please? I think we
Yes,
were
I will
doing
try
something.
again with pleasure. I cannot. I mean, I see the share button, but I cannot click on it.
Okay. Does it make sense for one of us to try here? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to try something. I'm going to try drive from the side because we do have your presentation. But if you could just let me know when to change the slide, then
Okay, and we will do this.
coordinate like that. Yes. Okay. Apologies.
Sorry for that here.
Sorry, Magali, just a second. We're just connecting
Sure.
up.
I'm sorry for that too.
You could have had a lot of questions, Francesco. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Margot. So I'm so sorry for these technical problems, and for me it's an honor to present this paper. This is a joint work with Sengun Cho from Yonsei University. To thank the organizers for including this paper in the program. And I'm sorry I cannot be here with you in person because I've never had the chance to visit South Africa. And indeed, we started the conference in the universe of books with Fabio. And I really discovered South Africa in a little more detail through the books of Nadine Gordimer. And my presentation today is going to be a bit like a book. And so, of course, it seems very amateurish compared to the short stories of Fabio. But what I want to underline is the fact that what I want to tell you this morning is a story, the story of a method. So we can go to slide 2, please. And what do we do in this paper? So in this paper, we derive conditions ensuring a unique stable equilibrium in rational expectations with regime switching. So I don't think I need to work too hard to convince you of the importance of taking into account possible structural breaks through regime changes. And when we deal with models with rational expectations, there is the question of determinacy is crucial. I know that we chat a lot on this with Junior, for instance, but Jean and Sangun and I, we are very focused on this problem of existence and unicity of an equilibrium. And there are many reasons for that. The first one is that we think that this determinacy ensures that the model correctly describes the economy. Second, this is a guarantee to be sure that when we take a non-linear model, if there exists a unique equilibrium, then we know that linearizing is valid. And a last argument is the one by Clarida Gallian-Gertler on the fact that good policy decisions aim at limiting extra volatility in models, and a way to characterize that is to ensure that determinacy. So in this paper, we propose a unified framework for mean square stability and boundedness concerning the determinacy. And for each stability concept, we characterize the different equilibria. And we have, so the codes are available, and we have standard applications on the standard model of literature with monetary and or fiscal switching. And so this paper appears to us as the epilogue of 17 years of research, and we can split it in 7 chapters. So we can go to slide 3, please. So the first chapter starts in 2012, 2007. Sorry. So the first, it's written by David and Lipper, AER, and indeed in this paper there are some very deep insights. And so, what do they do in their paper? They just take a new Keynesian model with standard monetary switching. So it means that we assume that the monetary policy can have different reactions to inflation, which are symbolized in my model by this alpha of ST. And we assume basically that there are 2 regimes, one in which alpha is small and one in which the alpha is larger. And so this is this story about alternance between active and passive regime. And so if we try to model these features, the model can be written as a purely forward model with rational expectations in which the matrices depend on the regime. And if we try to use the standard way to solve this type of model, we solve them forward, and we see that at the end there is this term in pink which appears, and so basically the Basic and Lipper conclude that if this term tends to 0, then there exists a unique solution, and they show that there is an equivalence. And so they claim that there is a necessary and sufficient condition for determinacy, which can be expressed like the fact that the limit of the product of all matrices on all the paths is 0, and they express it as the fact that the maximum eigenvalue of a complex matrix which is built with the transition probabilities of a Markov process and the matrix A of the model. So this is the first round, and we can take the second. Thank you. So then there is a reaction to this paper, and it comes from the paper of the reply of the comment, sorry, of Farmer, Wagoner, and Ja in 2010 in AR2, and in which, so here they start from the solution of Troy and Eric, and Troy and Eric, so they play with different values of parameters, alpha 1 and alpha 2, which are this reaction to inflation in the monetary policy rule, and they plot the determinacy region, which means that above the blue line in my picture, they claim that due to their conditions, there exists a unique bounded solution. And the reason why Roger, Daniel, and Tao cast doubt on this solution is the fact that this pink point here corresponds to some value of the parameters. Alpha 1 is equal to 3 and alpha 2 is equal to 0.93, for which they build 2 different solutions of the model. So problem. So next slide, please. And in parallel, they push a lot for an alternative route coming from signal processing, which is the concept of mean square stability. And this is a new stability concept, which was quite new in macroeconomics, and we say that such a process is mean square stable if the first and the second moment meet a limit. And under this condition, under this assumption of property of the processes, they are able to express a necessary and sufficient conditions, always in the purely forward-looking model, and they show that this is a quite similar conditions, but here what appears is the expectation of the square of the norm of all the products, which tends to 0. And so this concept is a bit new, and it's very computationally, it's very efficient because this square simplifies a lot the computations, and can be also rewritten as the maximum eigenvalue of a given big matrix. But the main problem of such an approach is that it's very convenient for purely linear models, but there is no underlying norm, so it's hard to connect the solution of a linear model in terms of mean square stability with the one of a nonlinear. So we can take next slide, please. Okay, so then chapter 4 comes from Sengun Cho, and he builds up the strategy of Farmer, Wagoner, and Jha, and he extends the results for a general model, because in practice we are very fast confronted with backward variables. So he is able to show that a model, general model, can be split. The solution can be written as the sum of what is called the fundamental or minimum state variable solution, and a sunspot that we call WT. And this sunspot WT is solution of a purely forward-looking equation. So matrix omega, f, and gamma, I didn't put the values on the slide for the sake of simplicity, but we can compute them easily depending on the first matrix ABC of the first model. And then from the theory of Tao and co-authors, we know that the process W can be expressed in terms as a Markov recursive process, and with a shock eta t, which is mean 0. And in this setup, Sengun is able to give determinacy conditions for mean square stability in the general case. He has an equivalence, and this equivalence is relies on some assumptions on W. I will come back to this later. So we can go to next slide, which concerns the fifth step of the story. And so on our side, Jean and I, we were because we had a companion paper on nonlinear models. We were stuck a bit with this boundedness concept, and so we just slightly correct the initial paper of Davig and Lipper, and we show that indeed, when the model is purely forward, the necessary and sufficient conditions for determinacy are expressed like the expected norm of all the product. So indeed, this is a condition which is a bit tighter. This is what is represented in my picture here. So the blue line is the one that was proposed in the paper of Davig and Lipper. The pink point is the counterexample of Farmer and co-authors, and our condition appears in black here. So this is something which is a bit computation, which requires more computations, but which is there is an equivalence, and this is completely feasible to compute it. And we build with the strategy of Sengun of forward iteration method. We are able to have determinacy conditions in the case of bondedness. And at this stage, we didn't have any equivalence, but because we didn't do any assumptions on W. And so the results coming from signal processing theory and rather as based on an approach à la Blanchard-Kahn leads to different approaches, different metrics, and it was very hard to have a unified idea on this. So we can go to next slide. And then, so we could have let the things like this. We at each level we have an idea of the solution. But we met Sengun in Paris in 2019. We discussed a lot. We wanted to understand. We wanted to we have the feeling of unfinished task. So we unite our forces, and then two forces unite, their efficiency double. And so what we understood at the end is the fact that this assumption on W, which was a bit at the beginning implicit, so it was not so easy as the story I told you today. But there was an extra assumption which is quite standard in control theory, and which was not so obvious in macro. And so the assumption is the fact that the sunset spot shock, this eta t, we assume that, okay, it's bonded mean square stable, which makes sense depending on the theory we want to promote. But the main fact is that it was independent of initial value and of the regime. So next slide. And so once we understood this, then we were able to have a very symmetric view. So what is this symmetric view? So we introduce a metric which is key, which is this behavior of the expected value of all the product on all the path. And so for when we abusively, we denote by infinity when it's just the supremum of all the norm of a product, but we can define mu1, mu2, mu infinity for any set of matrices. And what we show, and we consider a specific matrix, which is the one for which the matrix is the smallest one, which is for those who are familiar with this literature, is the mode solution. And so we consider this matrix in the case of bonded for the matrix 2 for mean square stability, and for the infinite metric for bondedness. And then once we have this, we are able to show that there exists a unique bonded solution if and only if the metric mu1 and mu infinity for bondedness are smaller than 1, and we have a similar symmetric result for mean square stability with the metric 2. We can go to next slide. Thank you. So once we had this, we are able to describe the whole set of the world. And so this is this table, and some complements to explain this table. Indeed, by working, we understood that when we have a slight tighter condition than bondedness, which is bondedness and what is called in the literature asymptotic stability, which means basically that when we start from any initial value, in absence of shocks, the process converges to the steady state. So it means we avoid unit root behavior. And concerning this type of models, it's not a big assumption. It's quite implicit in a lot of papers. And so when we had this slight assumption, bondedness implies mean square stability. And on top of this, there is a ranking of the matrix, meaning that mu2 is always smaller than mu infinity and it's always larger than mu1. So once we have this, we know that if we have a bounded solution, then necessarily it's mean square stable. But also, if we have a sunspot which is bounded, necessarily it is mean square stable. So the way we can look at this table is that let's start from the top right corner. So here everything is fine. We have a unique bounded and mean square stable solution. Then if we go down, then the solution, the bounded solution, is unique, but we can have several mean square stable solution. And then going down, more down, then there are several bounded solutions and several mean square stable solutions. So let's come back to top right corner. Then if we go to the left, then the solution, the bounded solution becomes no more bounded, but remains mean square stable. This is region 4. Then at the end, all the solutions are unbounded, which is region 6. And it may happen that we keep several mean square stable solution and none of them is bounded, which is region 5. And so that's it for the typology. So we can go in the next slide. Okay, so now I will show you in 2 applications how it works in practice. And the first question that was key in this debate is the first thing is it really different? Do we care a lot on this difference? So we started from this very simple Fisher equation with a very simple Taylor rule in which there is only reaction to inflation. And what we see in this setup of, so in pink, this is the frontier for boundedness, and in blue the frontier for mean square stability. So here it's purely forward. So this is a bit a subcase of the table I have shown you before, and we just did 2 exercises to play with the. Sorry.
You have 5 minutes left.
Thank you. I will succeed. So in this picture, we only play with the probability of staying in a regime. So what we call high persistence is the one where the probability to stay in regime 1 when we are in regime 1 is 0.9. And on the right panel, these probabilities are 0.5. And so P11 equal P22 equal 0.9 in high persistence, and P11 equal P22 equal 0.5 in the right. And so again, what we have understood is the fact that if there exists a unique bounded solution, it may at some point have several mean square stable solutions. That's why the blue line is above the pink one. And below the pink one, we don't have any bounded solution or mean square stable solution. And what we see is that in this very simple basic model, it's unclear if depending on the values of parameters, if the difference is significant or not. We can go to next slide, which corresponds to a monetary fiscal interaction example. So here we have the debt in the model, and we have also a Taylor rule which reacts only to inflation. And in this setup, so here, this is the example in which the regime 1 is monetary active and fiscal passive. So it means that theta 1 is smaller than 1 and alpha 1 is equal to 0.5. And we see how the deterministic conditions evolve depending on the parameters theta 2 and alpha 2. So here we can look at the top left corner. And here, this is the region in which, so above the blue line and on the left of the pink line, this is the region in which there exists a unique bounded solution and also a unique mean square stable solution. Then, if we move a bit to the right, then it appears, and we cross the pink line, then it means that we have, so it means that here you see theta 2, it's like a persistent coefficient. So it means that the bounded solution is close to 1 and means that it becomes unbounded. So we are in the case where we have a solution which is unbounded and which is mean square stable, which is region 4. Then when we move to the right furthermore, then all the solutions are unbounded. And so if we come back to the left corner, top corner, and we move down, so when we cross the blue line, it means that we have a unique bounded solution, but several mean square stable solutions, which is region 2. And at the end, we have several equilibria in region 3 for mean square stability and boundedness. And again, so we have many examples in the paper playing with alpha 1, alpha 2, and so on. But for this type of model, the difference are not so huge, and we have a perfect topology. We can go to the last slide, and I'm close to the end. So in this paper, we try to understand the differences between these two stability concepts. We have a quantitative assessment of determinacy for these two concepts, which are implementable. And this allows for use and comparison of these two concepts. The codes are available, and the questions that remain open. And it's something that we don't have too many ideas on this. So first is this question of what is the relevant stability concept in the end. We tend to think that for linearization, boundedness is more well suited, but computationally matrix for the mean square stability is a bit more efficient, so there is a sort of trade-off. And on the quantitative difference between the two concepts, we have explored a bit. It's not so clear to have a true answer on this. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks so much, Magali, and let's open the floor for questions.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Magali, for a good presentation, and thank you for a good summary of the literature in this area. Your work in this area is highly commendable. In terms of implementation, do you have some benchmarkings about how easily those things are implementable in large-scale models? And yeah, that's one question. Okay. Another question that I have is that I know that you and Jean have always worked on more non-linear models, because what you've presented so far is about constant transition probabilities. Mm-hmm. And you've been also interested in time-varying transition probabilities. Is there any way to extend that theory to something like that? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. So concerning your first question, with this study, what we understood is that in many cases we can even for studying bondedness, we can skip, because we have this ranking of different metrics. We can use the mean square stability concept to tackle a lot of cases, and we do it in the applications. And so what we have done so far is to have not so big models, models which are a bit larger than the one I presented, like with let's say 8 variables or this type of things. What is hard to tackle is to have a general setup with a number of regimes which is larger than 4, for instance. We have, because then the path of the matrices is explosive, and so it limits a bit the computations. But for reasonably, I would say, small scale model, it's feasible. And on your second point, so so there are different questions. We try to adjust the theory with this concept of mean square stability to linearize the model in another setup, and this to our knowledge it's not really feasible. So it means that if we want to linearize the model, then the concept of bondedness, which ensures that when Darinar answers, for instance, that Blanche-Carcan conditions are satisfied, then Blanche-Carcan conditions in the context of regime switching model, it's rather a bondedness story. But as I mentioned, we have this first step in the algorithm which uses the efficiency of mean square stability, which allows us to simplify a bit the problem. So I don't know if it answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Magali. Thank you. We've got another.
Thank you.
We have a question from our online audience.
Okay.
Are these results robust to switching mechanisms? If switching probability depends on nonlinear or variable lags, do you need some restriction on these dependence?
Okay. So perhaps it's a bit correlated with Junior's question too, but so as Junior mentioned, when with Jean, we have first worked on this endogenous probability, and so in the case of bondedness, and if the transition probability depend smoothly on past variables, so not current variables but past one, then we have another toolbox which tackles this type of problems. And for instance, I've worked with Nigel McClung, and we have made some simple examples in the case where we have monetary fiscal interactions and the transition probabilities depend on the level of inflation or of the debt. And so this type of thing, if probabilities are smooth enough and don't vary too much, of course, if you have in mind something like very big changes in probabilities, this method are not well suited to do this. But if we have only probabilities which smoothly depend on past variables, then it's feasible, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's close this session, and we thank both the presenter, Francesca and Magali, for their interesting presentation. So thank you again, and
thank you.
Yeah. So what shall we do with the break? 10 minutes?
How long was the break?
It's 15 minutes, but so we are supposed to reconvene to the next session now. So no, 5 minutes? Okay, so 5 minutes break. Come back at 11:35, please. It's just like 3 minutes.
11:32 now.
Yeah. Okay, so 5 minutes. Come back at 11:37.
Very precise.
I'm sure it will be exactly